The 11th Annual Peace Symposium, organised by the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in the UK, was held on the 8th of November 2014 at the Bait al-Futuh Mosque in Surrey. His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, worldwide head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, blessed the event and delivered a strong message to individuals and world leaders at large. The event attracted more than 1,000 guests, including distinguished government ministers, members of the House of Commons, the European Parliament, and many other dignitaries and guests from all walks of life. Guest speakers included Lord Tariq Ahmed, Baron of Wimbledon, Siobhan McDonough, MP for Mitcham and Morden, Stephen Hammond, MP for Wimbledon, Archbishop Emeritus of Southwark, Kevin MacDonald, Right Honourable Justin Greening, MP, Secretary of State, and Right Honourable Ed Davey, MP, Secretary of State. Various dignitaries commended the efforts of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community for promoting values of peace and tolerance. His Holiness was described as a great leader for peace. Mr. Rafiq Ahmad Hayat, the National President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in the UK, spoke on the establishment of the annual Ahmadiyya Muslim Prize for the Advancement of Peace and declared Mr. Magnus McFarlane Barrow the winner of this year's award. The 5th Annual Ahmadiyya Muslim Prize for the Advancement of Peace was presented by His Holiness to the founder and chief executive of Mary's Meals for his outstanding work to provide food and education to thousands of children across the developing world. The highlight of the event came when His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad delivered his speech and spoke about the discord within various countries in the world, the rise of terrorism and extremism, especially the rise of extremist groups such as ISIS, and mentioned how this brought great sadness to the peaceful Muslims of the world. He stressed that a large number of youth were travelling to countries such as Syria and Iraq and being radicalised by extremists. Speaking about the current state of affairs, His Holiness explained how many of the acts carried out by the extremist groups, although done in the name of religion, were directly in contradiction to the teachings of Islam. His Holiness gave numerous examples from the Holy Quran about the true teachings of Islam and how it teaches tolerance, peace, and freedom of choice. His Holiness expressed how the main source of funding for extremist groups in the world today were external powers that had their own material interests. His Holiness stated that if the world leaders and leading nations of today truly wanted peace, then they must take immediate action against this global issue to bring about change and stop the extremist groups. Radicalized youths could bring larger problems to the Western world, and this problem is no longer a local issue or that just concerning Muslims.
Again, I say that it is a cause of great pain and concern to me that these evil acts are all being associated with Islam. Nowadays, it is a major concern that Muslim youths from the West are traveling to countries like Syria and Iraq, where they are being radicalized. It is quite possible that they could eventually return to their home countries and launch attacks or cause great disorder in this part of the world. Thus, clearly, this is no longer a local or Muslim issue. It is an international issue that requires a global and concerted effort to stop these extremist organizations. Some prominent figures have suggested that it will take 30 or even 100 years for this war with extremism to conclude. Personally, I believe that the militants and extremist groups can be stopped in a much shorter period of time if the world is determined to eradicate them. We must not think that we are free from our personal responsibilities simply by saying it will take decades to end this war. Rather, everyone must join in this effort to counter global extremism. To simply lay the blame at the feet of Islam or particular groups will not save us from warfare or free us from our responsibilities. Thus, all peaceful people should pressurize their governments, and certainly all figures of influence should reflect on this and seek to develop peace in the world by promoting true justice in their respective spheres of influence, by taking firm action to prevent the destruction of world peace completely. If we want to save the world, then true justice needs to be shown at every level of society, and the problems faced in each country should be solved in a fair way that removes frustrations. No country's wealth should be looked upon enviously, and mutual policies should be made to help one another. Most importantly, the world must realize that it has forgotten its Creator, and they must come back to Him. Only when this happens can true peace be established.
Despite the worrying state of affairs, His Holiness counselled that it was essential for the world to come to its senses before another world war commenced, as he had warned before. In the end, His Holiness prayed that the world comes to recognise its Creator and thanked the audience for their time. His Holiness led the silent prayer, which was followed by dinner. His Holiness met personally with the various dignitaries, guests, and also held a press conference giving time to the journalists from various organisations to ask questions about the issues discussed in his address. His Holiness emphasised how the responsibility for finding solutions was on politicians and the media. This report is brought to you from MTA International, UK Studios in London.
Well, one of the things I enjoy about coming to the peace symposiums that the Ahmadiyya community holds is to listen to His Holiness. I always find him inspirational. I think tonight his message was even more important than ever. And I felt the way that he talked about the threat of ISIS in Iraq and Syria, and the way he showed that ISIS has nothing to do with the faith of Islam, I thought was extremely persuasive.
His Holiness gave a speech that was incredibly powerful, that set out all of the claims that violent groups like ISIS made and then totally demolished them in terms of what the Quran actually says. I think for a lot of people sat in the room, it helped them really understand what true Islam is actually about and how this message of peace is really at the heart of it.
Talk of His Holiness was not only important but most enlightening in quoting the Holy Quran in those verses that so clearly point out that Islam is a religion of peace, a religion of love, a religion that has nothing to do with violence or with something against justice and peace. So I have asked for the text because I want to quote it as much as possible, and I want to quote it correctly.
Well, I think one of the important things about the event today was the address of His Holiness, where he gave a very clear explanation of why the crisis with ISIS is completely un-Islamic. And that is very important to hear, because people don't necessarily hear that kind of detail. He went into detail about how in the Quran there could be no justification for the mentality, the mindset of people like ISIS. He also drew attention to the other factors, the funding of ISIS and the selfish interests of the Western powers historically.
I met the Caliph before at another function in the city a few months ago, and his message is always very consistent. One of the things people have to recognize, and the message is getting across, is the mere fact that we are all brothers and sisters.
The speech by His Holiness was superb. He didn't spare anybody. He said about ISIS, he was condemning them, but at the same time he emphasized that other organizations too have responsibility, those who are supporting them. So he wants there should be peace everywhere.
And Your Holiness, well, his speech was fantastic. There's a lot of undertone in there which made us all think when we go home and ask some serious questions about UK politics, but European politics as well. Because the question, I think, she was saying, where are ISIS especially getting their funding from? And it begs a big question, where are they getting it from? And he was very clever in the way he came across on that point.
But the Holiness, I just thought, it's incredible, because all the things he was saying were going through my mind, and I could actually relate to nearly everything that he said, which actually I think probably surprised me for some reason. I don't know why. I just found it very, very moving. I'm really pleased I came. I can't say more than that.
I have been so inspired this evening by hearing His Holiness speak. It has been such a clear, cogent and powerful message. It has given an insight into Islam that I think everyone should have. It is such an important message he has for the world and for the British people to understand the true nature of Islam.
I think there's so much need in the world today for people of different faiths to come together and to talk and to build that respect of each other and our different faiths. So it's been very special for me.
I was very impressed by your Khalifa's speech, and one of the messages I would like to say is I'd like to see more of that sort of message on the British media. I think we hear too much negativity.